It's late and I was having trouble sleeping, so this was on my mind and I just thought I'd do it. I want to get a little more detailed with the perceptual and sensory experiences, abnormalities, and specifically with dyspraxia. They also cross over into dyscalculia and dysgraphia. So I will maybe unpack dyscalculia and dysgraphia in another video, just because I don't know, I might get excited and just keep talking, but just because I feel they each have points worthy of specific attention. And yeah, so understood.org is a good resource, as is Dyspraxia Foundation, and there's a lot of good resources out there related to dyspraxia, and to mention a couple of books as well. I don't know. Living with Dyspraxia is a book that a friend was actually just giving away some books, so she had to me book, and she had that, and I asked if I could have it, keep it, read it. It was, I think, at the time that I found it one of the best resources. When I actually found out more about dyspraxia or developmental coordination disorder and what it was, I cried. I think I cried more than once, because so much of my upbringing, childhood and teenage years just fell into place and made sense, and I didn't feel so, like, I don't think I needed a diagnosis after that, because I could then research and implement strategies that were fit into address whatever issues I was having. But I think before that, like, I knew I had sensory and perceptual issues, so I just didn't know what they were. So yeah, on Understood, they talk about different types of dyspraxia and skills they affect. And so there's, I want to explain specifically, like, in a lot of detail, each one, but there's ideomotor dyspraxia, ideational dyspraxia, or motor dyspraxia, and constructional dyspraxia. So for ideomotor, it's basically like you have the mental image of what it is that you want to do, but you can't communicate the signal coming down to your body. Your muscles doesn't get is somewhere along the way lost in translation or transference, you know. Yeah, so there's some examples of just like simple tasks, hair brushing, I would say teeth brushing as well, any like using a fork, climbing stairs, and so on and so forth. Ideational dyspraxia, I'd say I have a little bit of that ideomotor, but I'm not sure if it's the word. Yeah, I think that ideomotor, and then the last one, construction, oromotor, ideomotor, and constructional. I'm not sure about ideation. Maybe the one I least. No, there's 4 types, right? So the one with trouble planning and executing sequences of steps, I do think that they all like intersect. I don't think it's like it's on a scale. I don't think it's like a discrete. It's continuous. Like black or white, you have one or the other type of dyspraxia, at least like in mine and observing others. And let me know if any of these like specifically fit or are more obvious for y'all. So yeah, ideation is like the planning and executing of sequences of steps to complete a task, and I think that comes from like not being able. I don't know how to explain it. part of the ideomotor manifests in that, at least for me. Like, I know mentally what to do because I can't physically. There's some areas like overlap in that respect. So it's like, because my mind gets kind of fixated on that one thing that I need to do, that one mental image, but I can't physically translate it. I can't then move on to the next part of the process to sequence out what I need to do. But I think more and more now I am, at least in the past, able to break things down into steps, even if like the processing is slow. And that is like on a cognitive and sensory and motor level as well. Oromotor speech, coordinating the movement of muscles needed to pronounce words, like verbal apraxia. I have that, and English was my first language, so I always end up pronouncing certain English words. Probably less so now, but I know that a lot of English words I pronounce them very phonetically, because for my muscles to learn to move in a different way, it's like harder. I just wanted to go through those 4 types of dyspraxia, and then I'll talk more about each. So enunciating and communicating in public settings, social relationships, can be like vocally. I think I pretty much stayed quiet. I wasn't completely mute, but I gave up, at least in part. And I hate repeating myself, that's another thing, because I don't think people realise how much effort it takes. But I gave up, at least in part, reaching out to people verbally when I was younger. And then obviously something that I work with. It's something that you just have to work with. If you have a child or a loved one who has that. And constructional, I think this is the biggest one for me. So trouble understanding spatial relations. That sounds really like, I would say internally I have a good spatial strata. Let's call it spatial strata. However, externally, I don't know, like maybe when I was younger I didn't have like a 3D substrate to like everything. I was like in a 2-dimensional world. Anyway, so to see the woods for the trees, to see the whole is like not that easy. So I trouble like this. I'll get into more like arranging place settings, organising bedrooms, lining items up in tables and charts, drawing shapes in geometry. This is one I know is like, but I think it also like interacts with some of the others and stuff like that. So before I go into the general, say if you have a child or teenager, loved one, who you think, like something might be up, some sensory and perceptual marker. It's more than sensory and perceptual, because it's more, well, motor I would say is a sense. It's in a tactile sense, but yeah, the spatial, like you just want to kind of like, you've always wondered or was curious or stuff like that, or yourself. So I've not been diagnosed, as I've mentioned. I have anemia as well, so I have low energy levels, and it's slow. It takes me a while to complete a physical task, like packing furniture, for example. Like the more sequences there are in that task. I always remember in primary school when they taught us how to make a cup of tea, and they had like these steps or sequences, and I think that's the first time where I felt like I'd actually completed something like that was a sequence, and this was, I must have been between ages 8 and 9. in primary school. So either physical tasks or what I call hybrid tasks, where you require both physical and like mental effort, or such as typing, like doing work and stuff. I think like structure really helps me, and then it's really hard for my mind to shift gears when it has to learn a new structure. Not so much nowadays, but I know definitely in the past it was like your whole world was falling apart. I'm a fast typer, but typically I just kind of, I'm left feeling exhausted if I'm like typing. I'm having to put a lot of effort in mentally and physically. So say if I'm writing afresh and I'm not just like copying something, or rather, where would I type it? Say it's on a different computer, or for some reason I can't copy and paste, and I'm just like verbatim typing it. That is less exhaustive than, it leaves me like feeling less exhausted than say having to actually think, write, plan an essay. For a long time I preferred working with numbers for this reason. I still do, but I'm much more confident in like producing written content. So as well, I love arts and crafts. I love using my hands. Even though I hate anything touching my hands, I love using my hands to do things, to make stuff. And I get really upset and frustrated because I'm like, I have no grip. There's so many reasons why I get angry and frustrated. The way I've kind of worked around that is to wear gloves. I have like sensory integration issues. So I will touch something and I will feel another sense become activated, or like another part of my body, or experience like changes as a result of being in contact with that thing, with my hand, that thing being in contact with my hand. So yeah, I love arts and craft. I love crafts and DIY, I should say. I love DT, like woodwork, welding. Generally speaking, like I prefer I really like, well, I prefer handmade things. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. Yeah, so that's something like I've for handling tasks and manual activities like chores and stuff, like I cook with gloves on, I do dishes with gloves on. If I'm tidying my room or organising the house, I've got gloves on. If it involves a lot of switching contact between different items with my hands, I will have gloves on. And I've even done like I've given massages and reflexology with gloves on for different reasons actually. For various reasons, but one of them was definitely like sensory overload. The other one was my nails were too long and there was no nail cut down. Yeah, so dropping things a lot, like I never stopped spilling drinks over, say, my uniform or work. The floor, just like, I'm a mucky pup, if you will. But I don't do it intentionally. It's also quite upsetting and frustrating, and I just try to like clean it up and get over, like just deal with it as it happens. I wish I had like better balance. I wish I had better spatial awareness, but it's not going to change. That's not the case. You know, that's not the reality. So I trip up or down the stairs a lot. I don't know about now as much, but I know that like I've walked into lampposts, I've walked into people, I've walked into walls. Just generally a bit of like I don't move fast. Well, I'm not saying I don't move fast. It's like a high energy, slow moving impact collision. High energy, because I'm just like a ball of like when I'm a very I might not be physically, you know, I might not be physically the most fastest or rapid, but because I have like my mind is like that's how mind travels really fast, and I'm quite high energy most of the time. I don't know if I think physically people say I look like I'm quite calm. Actually, they don't. Maybe it's only to those like closest to me, but yeah, I was a bit of a hazard, I should say. I mean, it's not if I calm down. So yeah, I walked into a lamppost when I was younger. That was fun. I was actually like paying attention, like something caught my eye in the distance, and I was eating something at the same time. But like, you know, peripheral vision usually kicks in and tells you there's a lamppost. That didn't happen, or like the awareness of like a physical boundary. That didn't happen. I literally just walked into it, like I was at an angle. I can't stay on my feet for too long. I think part of that is a knee, yeah, maybe. But I don't. I think I also feel that it has to do with balance. So I'm better off seated or laying down. I would prefer it at least. I had an accident. This relates to the crafts thing. That led to me learning knitting and crochet because I had to lay down I couldn't even sit up. I just had to. I was bedridden for intents and purposes. So I think like sitting down activities. This is in my teenage years. It was like mid-teens. So DIYs and crafts, like sitting, like making personal care products, making jewelry, or knitting, or crochet, or sewing. There's a lot that you can do while you're sat down. I really love welding, and I'm sure you can do some welding. You can do some welding while you sat down, but like other forms of welding, or like woodwork. Like I have such vivid memories of DT, like architecture and interior design as well. So like I like doing little projects around the house, right? And I mean like in terms of putting shelves up and like rearranging the order of the room, and that really tires me out a lot. I always like to have help with that, like when I'm trying to rearrange stuff, not only because it's like quicker, but I know like I feel like the gloves help, but I feel like I've gone through like certain different dimensions, and it's because it's difficult to put the steps in place to figure out what I need to do, and then also to get the mental image down to my the rest of my physiological body signal wise. So yeah, it's like a long process, and I have to plan I have to plan in detail. I feel like I think it's part of that constructional, not seeing the woods for the trees, can't see the bigger picture, like the angle, so you break it down, like condense it. So yeah, it takes it out of me. So just an anecdote about walking into things. And we were in Blackpool Pier, and I kept walking into people, and my friend commented like, I swear sometimes like you're not here, and I actually laughed and I agreed with her. I was like, yeah, you're right, I'm not. So yeah, I never hold knife and fork in the same hands. I'm constantly switching, like sometimes the knife will be on my right hand, sometimes the fork will be on my right hand. I know my left from my right, generally speaking, and I can tell other people's left from right, but when it comes to like a dominant hand, it doesn't happen very easily with like common, I guess for pen writing, I should say, I've trained a dominant hand, but I can do it to some extent with the other hand, and it wouldn't feel like a big difference, if that makes sense. Maybe it's just, yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, I've played string instruments for years, and it's like I have no muscle memory in terms of like technique and the technical, like I do a lot of improv. I will learn a song. Some people, they learn songs and remember it for years. Like they learn it once, I don't know why. That's just how things are. I know that I know how to play it, and if I was to like play it once over or like find it, then it will come back to me. But to get like, it's like a very what's the word, non-flow, whatever that is, process to actually like recall that. So it's like I don't have a physical strata that connects with the mental strata to integrate like the experience on the physical mental level. And I have to say, like, ever since I've discovered, they have gotten better. And even like before I discovered it, before I discovered dyspraxia per se, but when I was analysing sensory and perceptual, I was working on different areas, and they did really radically change and helped me adapt my understanding of myself and other people as well. I know that I didn't look people in the eyes before the age of like when did I move out? 17. I just looked like just below. Like I know this happens a lot with autism and Asperger's and on the spectrum, but it's like I couldn't connect like that human sense of like I'm speaking with somebody. Everything was like an object, like a two-dimensional type. Not even two-dimensional, but just like, like when you see, when things have boundaries, right? Like an object is defined by its function, or like a human is defined by the being, that person, like the physical embodiment of like the name associated with. There wasn't really that distinction of like physical boundaries, or spatial boundaries I should say, not so much physical but spatial boundaries. It was just like random events in the spatial sphere taking place. So I always wondered if it was like a form of mind blindness, like obviously like in psychology, and I'll talk about this maybe more in another video, there's like the theory of mind, where other people or other things have a mind of their own. So that kind of mind blindness, like not seeing a functionality or like a separateness, that separateness being defined by like the spatial relation of that thing to another, as in there's just gas in between, there's empty space. Terrible for exams, very very bad not having a working learning memory or muscle memory, or like a physical strata that connects with the mental strata. So difficulty holding a pen and manually handwriting, so that's a dyspraxia a bit, and I have really tiny handwriting. So I think like in terms of senses, the most suppressed sense when I was younger was touch, as in terms of like being aware, and the most heightened was vision, ironically. I think like I remember a lot of what I saw when I was younger, like some of what I heard. I think sound was probably the next one, but my vision, like things just like I might not like contextually have meaning for it. I just remember that, like I remember buildings I saw when I was 3. When people tell me stories, I just have like visions come back, like I see things all the time. I hear things too, but that's a different story. Like the touch though, like my family were never really physically like nurturing, so I used to wear layers. Like I was really sensitive to touch, and I used to wear layers, not just so that people wouldn't touch me So that my skin would not come into contact with the external world, because I couldn't. It was random. I couldn't tell what was touching me and what wasn't, and that's like you're in a state of panic all the time. Yeah, and also like with the gloves. Now I know what I'm touching. I just don't like really the disturbance in the process. Also understood they have a fact sheet where they state kids with DCD may have trouble with coordination and balance, planning and carrying out sequence of movements, brush teeth, getting dressed, and other self-care. In my worst times when I was younger, my self-care was shot. It was absolutely shot, and it's just because I just couldn't organize what the hell I had to do. Riding a bike and playing sports. I didn't really have. I can't remember having great difficulty learning to ride a bike. I had a pretty awesome teacher. So. Driving. This is like, I know how to drive, but I'm petrified of taking my. No, I'm not as petrified nowadays. But I always think I'm a bit of a hazard. I'll be a hazard on the road. Maybe if I had like some special driving gloves, I didn't have to I could eliminate the steering wheel factor. Using scissors, forks and utensils, climbing stairs, handwriting, dropping open picnic door plates. So yeah, I'll get into like other aspects of other developmental conditions in future. I just want to and also some more strategies like support you can put in place. So the book, the first book, Living with Dyspraxia, is the book that I got from my friend, and I've read that, Guide for Adults with Developmental Disorders, and it was really useful. I have it somewhere in the house, but I'll link to it on Amazon. Maybe like in a future video I can go through some of that book. There are two other books though that when I searched for this book came up that look really interesting and I want to read. Cajun Chaos. The Living with Dyspraxia book is by Mary Coley. There'll be a link below. So Cajun Chaos, a Dyspraxia guide to breaking free. And the Dyspraxic learner strategies for success. So I'll link all these below. If anyone's read Cajun Chaos or the Dyspraxic learner, what are they like? Are they worth? They're highly rated. Are they worth reading? I'm definitely gonna get them and read them. Maybe get them on Kindle or something. Anyway, yeah, I think that for now, takeaways, just quickly, because eventually, I want to explore in other areas, but I'm focusing on the perception sensory. Obviously there's some links with like other autism and other conditions and stuff. So ADD, comorbidity. So like the touch, oversensitivity, and like least developed. Does that make sense? And smell. I would say touch and smell because it kind of use the same mechanism, believe it or not, sound, taste, and touch. Similar mechanism, different organs. Yeah, and the vision being, at least in terms of memory, not in terms of integration, sensory or processing, being like very strong in the sound. Like, what are other people's, like, sensory and perceptual experiences, if they had to look back. Yeah, and the whole, like, randomness of the external world. So I'll leave it there, I think. But now I think I'm gonna sleep much better than before. Like, before it was a losing game. And I want to say thank you. I had a nice response, nice responses from these videos so far, and, like, I want to, like, eventually, I want to make 7 parts for this, and then eventually get, well, at least for now, but I want to talk about the consciousness link with sensory and perceptual experiences and lots of other things, because this is, like, burning questions. Some questions in life are just burning questions. This is one of those burning questions. So to be able to share that, and to like, typing obviously might exhaust me if I was to, like, chat all the time about it on type. But to be able to share that and discuss that is it something that should be embraced? I would want to embrace. Is a experience that I'm really grateful for. Yeah. So over and out. I hope that was coherent. Anyway, it's bedtime. Be well.